What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian MMA podcast. I am your host, and my name is John, and we are back with episode 55, analyzing and predicting the UFC Philadelphia card going down this Saturday night. And we are concluding the 9-week stretch of UFC events that have gone down over the past 9 weeks. It's been a long and grueling stretch with a lot of great fights, a lot of tape study to be done, and it goes without saying that I'm looking forward to the break next week after studying every single one of these matchups for the past 9 weeks. But like I said, it's been exciting. There's been great fights, and it's been totally worth it. And we are concluding it with the UFC on ESPN card going down this weekend in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia myself. I will be in attendance Saturday night. I can't fucking wait for this card, top to bottom. It's got great matchups, 13 fights, and we're just praying to the MMA gods that it keeps intact. The main event has got, fight of the year written all over it. Edson Barboza versus Justin Gaethje, just two incredible strikers that bring the fight every time. I don't think I've seen a boring fight from either one of these guys. Maybe a few boring Barboza fights, but definitely never a boring Justin Gaethje fight. And, you just couldn't really ask for a better headlining fight than this for an ESPN card. And the UFC knows it. They knows that they're on ESPN. They know that they need casual matchups to, or not casual, good matchups to attract casual viewers, and this has that written all over it. So with that being said, we're going to start things off at the bottom of the card. We're going to preview all 13 fights before we get to the main event. So we're starting things off in the bantamweight division. We got Alex Perez, who is 21-5, taking on Mark De La Rosa, who is 11-1. Now, the opening betting line for this one was Alex Perez as the -185 favorite to Mark De La Rosa at +145. And looking over at our affiliated sportsbook, 5dimes.eu, we see Perez at -345 to De La Rosa at +285. So a lot of money coming in on Alex Perez, and I gotta say that I'm a bit surprised, honestly. When I first saw this line open, I actually thought about betting De La Rosa right away, and what a mistake that would have been if I bet him at +145 and him now sitting at +285. So an incredible amount of action coming in on Alex Perez in this matchup. I get Perez being the favorite, but I really do not think that he should be this much of a favorite. Now, one thing that's coming into a big play in this matchup is that they're both moving up in weight class, and the flyweight division, I think, was perfect for Mark De La Rosa. He was, a smaller size flyweight, really benefited from the weight class, while Perez, I think, is a big flyweight and will benefit more from the move to bantamweight. And it's sad that De La Rosa is moving up, because I really don't see him having much of a career at bantamweight, unfortunately. So, but getting down to the matchup of these things, we got Alex Perez. He's a great boxer. He had that crazy war with Shorty Torres where he threw like 200 punches in one round and eventually got the TKO victory in that one. That's just a barn burner of a fight. He had some great wrestling skills where he took down and controlled Eric Shelton, winning a decision in that fight. Shelton's got a great ground game, good wrestling of his own, so that's a very impressive win. And he fell short against Benavidez in his last fight. He got TKO'd in that fight. People will tell you that a headbutt changed the course of the fight. Man, I don't know about that. I watched that fight recently. It didn't look like much of a headbutt, and Perez just got stuck on bottom and just got some ground and pound rained on top of him by Benavidez, eventually getting the finish in that one. So, this one, it's going to be a tough matchup for De La Rosa in this one, taking on the bigger guy. He's going to be Perez is going to be the better striker, and he's got good wrestling game to defend the ground attacks of De La Rosa. De La Rosa's path to victory, I think, is definitely going to be on the ground in this one. He's got really good submissions. That's where most of his wins in the UFC have come so far. His defensive grappling, though, is not very good, I don't think. I think that if Perez is the one trying to level change in this one and to take him down, I think Perez will get those takedowns. He will use his size, strength, and that better wrestling pedigree he has to get De La Rosa down. And De La Rosa has the tendency of going for a guillotine or trying to get a sub to stuff a takedown instead of using wrestling to stuff the takedown. So that could get him caught on his back here. So if Perez maybe, or if De La Rosa puts on a lot of muscle before this matchup, he's, feeling bigger for the weight class. He's got that game plan down. He's looking to take down Perez, take his back and go for the choke. he has a small path to victory in this one, but I really think that Perez has more path to victory. I think that he could probably punish De La Rosa on the feet, possibly even TKO De La Rosa. He could maybe even make this one a grappling heavy decision game plan with, just staying in top position and raining down ground and pound, or he could possibly just look to cruise it out on the feet to a decision. So Perez has got a lot of more paths to victory, but where the line sits at now, I would definitely not trust Perez's money line, and I would not knock a stab on De La Rosa, but the pick is going to be Perez in this one to get it done. Next fight is in the women's flyweight division. We have Marion Moraz, who is 8-3, taking on Sabina Mazo, who is 6-0. The opening betting line for this one was Mazo as the favorite at -175 to Moraz as the dog at +135. Right now, over on 5 Dimes, we're seeing Mazo at -145, Moraz +125. So line margins tightening up. Pretty surprising, honestly. I've been seeing people talk about Mazo all week. She's got, some highlight reel head kick knockouts. Moraz has been in the UFC for a while, has never really impressed anybody, not just me. I don't think anybody is impressed with Moraz. She just doesn't really seem like she wants to, hurt her opponents too much. It seems like she's going in there to point fight, like it's like a karate competition or something like that. She doesn't really have much killer instinct. The only time I've really seen her look mean in the octagon or look, like she wanted to end a fight is when she landed a massive overhand right on Danielle Taylor, just a wicked punch. Somehow Danielle Taylor survived that one. But regardless, that's the Moraz is she's a long girl. She's like got a kickboxing style. She throws a lot of output, but it's like they're feeler shots. It's like she's throwing shots not to hit you, but to prevent you from moving forward. She's got a really weird fighting style. She misses almost all of her strikes. It's like she never really connects with the girl that she's fighting. It's very, very strange. It looks like the reason why I say kickboxing, not Muay Thai, is because her clinch game is weak. She looks very inexperienced in the clinch. It doesn't look like she's knowing what she's doing. It doesn't look like she knows what she's doing in the wrestling game either, or the jiu-jitsu. She's got a couple arm bars and finishes on her early records, but that's the way it goes usually in low-level women's MMA. It's the fights are they collide into each other. They grapple to the ground, and then someone gets an arm bar on one another, and that's how the fight goes. And that's how she got a bunch of her early victories. But in the UFC, she has not really shown too much of her grappling success. Actually, I think she has an armbar win over JoJo Calderwood, which is a pretty decent win actually. But that was 3 or 4 years ago. She has not looked good since. She hasn't really been too active either. Looking at her record, she fought once in 2017, lost a decision to Esparza. Once in 2018, lost a decision to Angela Hill. And now she's coming back versus Sabina Mazo here, and probably gonna lose a decision in this one. I just think that Mazo is much more fluid on the feet. She throws with a lot more ill intent. Her kicks are wicked, man. She's got some absolute highlight reel knockouts where she kicks girls dead, like dead corpses collapsing over with her head kicks, man. It's a really pleasure to watch. I wasn't expecting it, I hadn't really heard, I might have seen the highlights 1 or 2 times. I didn't know her, I recognized her name a little bit, but I never really sat down and watched her fight. So when I'm watching her fights, I see her fighting Marion Moraz, I'm expecting a boring kickboxing match, and then I see these girls get dropped with the head kicks out of nowhere. It really shocked me. So, Mazo looks really good. Her boxing doesn't look too bad. Her footwork looks really good. She looks, like I said, much more fluent on the feet, and both of these girls get hit a lot. Both of them don't really pay too much attention to defense. I think both of them, their takedown defense is no good. And their ground game, I think, are both decent. So I think their ground games will mostly cancel one another out, and then it'll be mostly contested on the feet, where I just expect Mazo to be landing the harder, cleaner shots all fight to a decision, possibly even getting a finish on Moraz if she's able to whip that head kick around. But I gotta lean with a decision instead of a knockout. It's Mazo's debut in the UFC. She'll probably play it safe and cruise to a decision, outstriking Moraz in this one. So that's gonna be the pick. The next fight takes place in the bantamweight division. We have Ray Borg, who is 11-3, taking on Casey Kenny, who is 11-1-1. The opening betting line for this one was Ray Borg at -350 to Casey Kenny at +250. Right now, at our affiliated sportsbook 5dimes.eu, we see Borg -300 to Casey at +250. So not much action coming in on this fight so far. I actually found out a pretty cool website, Zuki.com, where it tells you the amount of wagers that have been placed on either fighter on 5dimes, which is pretty sweet. So we looking over at this Zuki.com, we're seeing that almost no wagers have come in on this fight at all. It was just announced pretty recently. Ray Borg, his opponent, changed for this fight multiple times. He was supposed to fight Pingyang Liu, and then he was supposed to fight Kyler Phillips, and now he's fighting Casey Kenny. I tell you, man, what an up and down year that Ray Borg has had. His last fight was against Demetrius Johnson, which a fight where he actually missed. I think was supposed to fight UFC 215. I think he, couldn't make weight, and the fight was scratched on a week's notice. The fight got rescheduled to UFC 216, and he got completely outclassed and finished by Demetrius Johnson in that one. Then he is supposed to fight Brandon Moreno, gets rescheduled, finally is at fight week, and then Conor McGregor throws a dolly and shatters like glass in Ray Borg's eye. They rescheduled the Brandon Moreno fight. He can't fight. He's supposed to fight Benavidez. He can't fight. His son, was, I believe, had cancer, and he had to pull out of a lot of fights because of that. So he's had, 5-6 fights canceled, 5-6 different opponents canceled in the past year. So just crazy year for Borg. And he's moving up in weight class in this one. Seems like most of the flyweights are moving up to 35 just to make sure that they have their job secured, because if you fight a flyweight and you lose that fight, there's a great chance that you get cut from the roster, which is just a totally fucked up situation. But regardless, getting down to the matchup in this one, it's a close one, honestly. I think it's a little bit closer than what the odds are saying right now. I am taking Borg's inactivity in a little bit. I'm thinking about it a little bit. It's definitely something to think about. Also, Borg is moving up in weight in this one, while Casey Kenny has fought at bantamweight before. So I'm sure Borg has fought at bantamweight throughout his career, maybe once or twice. But he definitely has the frame of a flyweight. So it'll be interesting to see if the size difference plays a factor in this one. But I don't think it will. I think they should be pretty evenly matched size wise. But getting down to the matchup, we got Ray Borg. He's, I'd say, definitely wrestling based. He's got great wrestling game, offensive and defense. He can hit takedowns of his own, and he can defend them very well. He defended Jussier Formiga's takedowns very well. A really high level grappler of his own, and defended some submission attacks from Formiga as well. Formiga was able to take his back, but Borg was able to defend the choke, reverse position, and then rain down some ground and pound on Formiga and eventually win that round and that fight from Formiga. So a very impressive win. Probably his most impressive on his career for Borg. And one thing in that fight is that his boxing looked much improved. It looks like he was moving a lot quicker. And he just got caught with a few hard leg kicks, and it looked like his leg was a little bit tender because of it. So look for that, his future opponents to exploit that. I don't really remember if Demetrius Johnson did or not. I'm not going to rewatch that fight. But Casey Kenny making his UFC debut, an LFA veteran, a Tuesday Night Contender Series veteran. He was on that show, fought twice, actually won both of his fights, but just got absolutely robbed of a decision versus what is this gentleman's name? Royval. No. He beat Royval. He beat. There was some other guy. Let me figure out this guy's name. I just watched this fight an hour ago, and the commentators, Dana White, both of them said you won that fight, man. You won. Adam Antolin. Yeah. So he took on Antolin in that show. Easily won that fight and was unfortunately robbed on the scorecard. So Casey Kenny has never lost. He's coming in here. He just defended his bantamweight title at LFA. He just went 5 rounds, and then he was training for another fight that was scheduled to be 5 rounds up and coming soon, and that's when he got the call to come in for this fight short notice. So 250 for Casey Kenny in this one. It sounds good, and it sounds good already, and I haven't even began to tell you about some of the good things that he does well in the cage. And I've been impressed with Kenny. He's got his striking looks very solid. He's got good kicks. His boxing is really good. He's got a nice left hand. He's got some power behind it too. he likes exchanging in the pocket a little bit. He likes, planting his feet and throwing some bombs from time to time, which, could get him caught, but it hasn't yet. His chin has looked good so far. And, I don't think Borg will be the kind of puncher to test Kenny's chin. I just don't think that's really in his style. And Kenny also, his grappling is very good. He is, his opponent Roy Val. That's where I got that name from earlier. He took Royval down. He threatened with submissions. He used ground and pound. He kept top control. He dominated that fight on the ground, retaining his belt in that one. And he, like I said, it's going to be tough for Kenny to get that ground game going against Borg, because Borg is so solid on the ground. His takedown defense, his reversals, and his sub defense. If Formiga, one of the best grapplers in the UFC, wasn't able to submit Borg, I don't see Kenny doing it either. But I think Kenny can win this fight otherwise. I think he could edge out a close decision. If this fight stays on the feet, I think it will be really competitive. I actually might give the edge to Kenny. These guys have similar experience. They both have 12, 13, 14 fights. And I just think that Kenny is a little more fluid on the feet. I think he's got the more tools. I think he's a little more calm and calculated, while Borg kind of just sprints into the pocket and throws quick punches and gets out. And that layoff, that's 18-month layoff, is going to be something big in this fight. I really, Casey, like I said, has been fighting very regularly, been winning fights and training to defend his title, while Borg has been struggling to get fights, dealing with those personal issues and dealing with that glass in his eye. He might have had some injuries that he had to pull out of other fights for, so he's got a lot on his plate. So where the odds are at now, I think it's I would not knock a play on Casey Kenny. I might even end up betting him right now just based on value. I think it's much more, Borg should be maybe minus 150, Casey Kenny plus 130. It's just pretty crazy how wide the line is right now. So, man, I'm going to go with Casey Kenny to pull out the upset in this one. I just think that he will land the cleaner, harder shots all fight and win a decision. So the next fight is taking place in the middleweight division. We have Kevin Holland, who is 14-4, taking on Gerald Meerschaert, who is 29-10. The opening betting line for this one was Kevin Holland as the minus 265 favorite to Meerschaert at plus 185. Looking over at 5dimes.eu, we see Holland minus 190 to Meerschaert at plus 165. So a lot of action coming in Meerschaert's way. I agree with it. I think where the line was the opening line was set a little bit too wide. I think that Holland has looked good in the UFC so far, but I don't think that he deserves to be minus 265 over Meerschaert in this spot. Holland, he's very well rounded. His striking is good. He's got good kickboxing, a nice jab. He's got good kicks, and he's also got a good ground game. He's got good defense. He actually defends ground and pound well. You don't hear that very often, but when he was on bottom versus Thiago Santos, he was, shrimping his hips and moving side to side and blocking punches. And, Santos looked like he was raining down ground and pound on him. But if you watch that closely, Holland was covering up those shots, moving out of the way, something you really don't see from guys from bottom too much. You see them, once they start to get hit with some ground and pound, they turn over, they give up their back, or they scramble up to their feet and, get in a bad position. But Holland just remained calm and just evaded the shots. Something, like I said, you don't see very often. So that impressed me. And his kickboxing is sensational. But against John Phillips though, so don't take it too seriously. He was able to, his kicks and his jab were looking pretty solid against Phillips, but Phillips is one of the lowest level opponents on the roster. So Jared Meerschaert, he's a wild man. He on the feet, it looks like he's a little uncomfortable on the feet sometimes. It looks like he blitzes in, he swarms with 5, 10, 20 punches sometimes, and likes to just throw power. It doesn't really have much technique. Doesn't look like he's trying to be accurate. It looks like he's just trying to overwhelm you with punches. And then what's he looking to do? I don't know. So it looks like he just likes getting in brawls, man. You watch that fight with Oscar Pichota. That shit was just a brawl from start to finish, where he ended up, withstanding the storm, defending the choke from Pichota, and then getting on top and ended up getting his own choke on, just putting Pichota out cold. Same thing with the Eric Spicely fight. It looked like he was getting tagged up a bit. It looked like he was, playing rope-a-dope on the feet with Spicely, kind of letting Spicely have a close fight with him, and then all of a sudden he whips around that body kick and TKOs Spicely in that one. So Meerschaert's got, sneaky power on the feet. He's a wild man, and if this one stays on the feet, I expect Holland to be the more technical one. He's probably going to be jabbing and teeping Meerschaert away at distance, not allowing Meerschaert to come in and into the pocket where he's more comfortable. And then where this one gets to the floor, it's, I honestly see the Holland having the advantage on the floor too. Meerschaert was just absolutely outclassed by Jack Hermansson in his last fight. Taken down, mounted, ground and pound, just beaten to a pulp by Hermansson in that fight. Just a great performance from Hermansson in that one. But Meerschaert's got really good chokes, man. His ground game is much better than his striking. Most of his wins have come by the way of submission. He's good at defending submissions. So I think that, I don't think Holland will be able to defend the chokes. Or excuse me, I don't even know what I just said. I think that the ground will be even. I don't think that either guy will be submitting one another. I think this fight it really depends on what's going to happen on the stand-up, and I just give the edge to Kevin Holland in the stand-up in this one. I don't think I would bet him as a favorite. I just think there's a little bit too much unknown about him. We haven't really seen him tested too much. We saw him against Santos short notice against at middleweight. And for coming in that fight against a dangerous guy like Santos at short notice, he looked good in that fight. And, it looked like he looked good against Phillips, but like I said, a very low-level opponent. So there's still a lot unknown about our boy Kevin Holland. He's, an entertaining fighter to watch. There's no doubt it's going to be an entertaining fight. I think that actually Holland's antics in the cage will probably draw Meerschaert into a more reckless type of fight, where I think that Holland has a good chance at testing that chin of Meerschaert and possibly putting him out of there. So I don't see this one going to the cards, man. I see this one of these guys finishing another. I don't seeing it be buying a submission either. I think both of these guys' ground game are solid. I think they'll cancel each other out, and it'll really come down to what happens on the feet in this one. So where the odds are at now, I'd say it's much more playable than where they opened up. But I would not be betting Holland as a favorite. Certainly, I wouldn't knock a play on Meerschaert as the dog, but I just don't see him pulling off the victory in this one. So the pick is going to be Kevin Holland to get this one done, probably by TKO. Alright, the next fight takes place in the featherweight division. We have Enrique Barzola, who is 15-3-1, taking on Kevin Aguilar, who is 16-1. The opening betting line for this one was Barzola as the plus 125 underdog to Aguilar at minus 165. Right now, we are seeing the line flip to Barzola at minus 122, Aguilar at plus 100 over at 5dimes.eu. So, interesting opening line in this one. Aguilar at minus 165. It seems like the bookie, whoever the odds maker opened this line, values Aguilar a little bit higher than what the public is thinking. So, this is a close fight, it's the odds indicate it's one of the closest matchups in the card, and I would have to agree. It's really going to be a razor close one, and it depends about the geography of the fight, where the fight takes place. If it takes place on the feet, Aguilar wins. If it takes place on the ground, I lean Barzola. Kevin Aguilar's UFC debut in his last fight against Rick Glenn, I was really impressed with him. I thought his boxing looks really solid in that one. He was throwing hard shots that were hurting Glenn, busting Glenn up in that one. And he also defended the takedowns well of Glenn. I was impressed. He got caught against the cage a couple of times. Glenn would shoot, and he was able to defend the takedowns. And he definitely has his flaws. He was taken down by Gomez on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, and he was held down too. He did not look too good off his back. It didn't look like his get-ups were too good, and it did not look like his he had any much jiu-jitsu to help him sweep or submit to get back up to his feet. So Aguilar is really going to need this fight to stay on the floor, or stay on the feet. And his do I trust his takedown defense? I do not, honestly. I think Barzola will get him down. Barzola has relentless wrestling. He all he's trying to do is wrestle out there. He doesn't give a fuck about striking. His striking sucks. He's only striking to close the distance. You start at distance, spam a couple shots, and then shoot the takedown. When it's at range, when it's at range on the feet, he's bad. His defense is bad. His offense is bad. If it stays on the feet, I honestly see Aguilar knocking Barzola out. But it's going to be tough to stop those takedowns because he's relentless with them. He'll go for a single, then he'll go for a double, then he'll go for a trip, then he'll go. He chain wrestles really, really well, and that's the way he's won his fights. But his style is exhausting, Barzola. He goes for the takedowns, but his top control is not good. So he'll use all of his energy and all of his muscle to get you down to the ground, and you should think, oh, okay, got him down. Now it's time to, hold him down, get a better position, get some ground and pound, get a submission, right? No, Barzola is it seems like he's just looking for the takedown. His top control sucks. His opponents always get up. Gabriel Benitez got taken down 10 times and got up 10 times. He still lost that fight clearly because he wasn't landing any hard shots on the feet, but Barzola's his top control is definitely something to look at in this fight. So even if he's using that energy to get Aguilar down and he's struggling with the takedowns and he's using that gas tank to get Aguilar down and he's not doing much with the takedowns, he's not doing damage or threatening with submissions, Barzola could get tired, and he definitely looks like he slows down in his fights. Now, it's not like he's totally gassed out losing the third round. It's just he looks very slow in the third round. He's still able to hit takedowns, he's still able to win rounds, but he slows down significantly. So, the only real tool that Barzola has in the feet, honestly, is leg kicks. And he doesn't have to be worried about kicks too much because he's not worried about being taken down. He wants the fight to go on the ground, and in this matchup in particular, Aguilar is not going to have much jiu-jitsu or ground game to threaten Barzola with. So I expect Barzola to be throwing kicks at range, looking to close the distance and get the takedown. I expect him to get the takedown, but I don't expect him to hold Aguilar down. I expect Aguilar to get back up and make this fight close, and I think that Aguilar could land some hard shots that rock Barzola and possibly win rounds, possibly finish Barzola. Now, I lean Aguilar in this matchup, but I'm not going to bet him at plus 100. His takedown defense is and his get-ups and his jiu-jitsu are just a little too lackluster for me to be betting him at just plus 100. If I got a little bit of a better price on him, I might stab on it. I wouldn't trust Barzola at these odds either, man. His striking is so bad, and his top control is so bad that I just don't think I wouldn't be comfortable betting on him to ride this one out to a decision. So if Aguilar's gas tank is on point, he's content to defend, get taken down, get back up to his feet, and then land the harder shots on the feet throughout the fight, then I could see him winning a decision in this one or possibly knocking Aguilar out. If Aguilar's get-ups, his takedown defense, his cardio is not on point, then I think Barzola will be taking him down all night and, cruising to a decision. Barzola has almost no finishing ability, doesn't go for submissions, doesn't throw any hard punches. So if Barzola wins, it'll be by decision. Aguilar could win by decision, but if he wins this one, I think most of the time it's by knockout. So I'm going to lean Aguilar, maybe go with a second-round TKO for Aguilar, but it's not a confident pick at all. But really close matchup. And the next fight is taking place in the lightweight division. We have Ross Pearson, who is 20-5, taking on Desmond Green, who is 21-8. Now the betting line for this one opened up Desmond Green as the minus 365 favorite to Ross Pearson at plus 255. Looking over at our affiliated sportsbook, 5dimes.eu, we see Desmond Green minus 450 to Ross Pearson at plus 360. So a lot of action coming in on Des Green, even as the 3-1 favorite, pushing him to almost 5-1 in this matchup. I don't agree with it at all. I think Green should be favorite. I think he should be minus 250, minus 300 maybe. But minus 450 for Desmond Green is ridiculous. This guy was just a plus 300 underdog against Mairbek Taisumov in his last fight, and now he's minus 450 in this spot. Crazy how times change. Well, he did look very good in that fight. He lost the fight to Taisumov, pretty clearly, but he looked good. Or maybe Taisumov looked bad. Who knows? But Green has looked good lately. He's taken on some stiff competition. Mostly these these older lightweights that are kind of stuck in the mud, I would say. Rustam Khabilov, Misha Prizeris, Gleison Tibau, Mairbek Taisumov. Those guys are tough. No doubt about it. Only picking up one win out of his last 4 fights, though. He definitely struggles with the higher level guys. But Ross Pearson is not that. Ross Pearson is at the end of his career. Talk about Green is 1-3 in his last 4. Well, Pearson is, I think, 1-6 in his past 7. Maybe even worse than that, man. This guy, it's a miracle that this guy is still on the UFC roster. 1-5 in his last 6. So, pretty insane that Pearson's still on the roster. But he doesn't look totally shot yet. I'll give him that. I've seen shot fighters. I wouldn't say Pearson is quite there yet. I would just say that he's, on the steep decline. In his last fight against Makdessi, Pearson was still, marching forward. His chin looked good. He was eating shots, but he was coming forward. He's tough as fuck. His chin does not look like it's fading too bad. And that's going to be a good thing in this matchup because Desmond Green does not throw hard shots. He's got decent boxing. He's got a nice left hand, but he does not throw very hard. He dropped Gleison Tibau with, I think, a left hand. But, I think that's the only time I've really seen him show power in the octagon. And Green's a small lightweight, man. It seems like he could definitely make 145. He's got that ridiculous hair. Like, his hair is down, like, to his butt cheeks. And then he ties it up in the most ridiculous way. And it's flopping all over the place when he's fighting. It's really annoying. But he's very well-rounded. Like I said, he's got that good boxing. He's got, I believe he's a D1 wrestler or something like that. Wrestled in college. He's got really good wrestling to back him up in this one. So I see it being contested on the feet, and if it's on the feet, I think Pearson honestly has a shot at winning as a plus 360 underdog. If he's, if Desmond Green tends to be a little bit low output, he tends to not really. Man, it just doesn't seem like he fights with fire. He's going out there to point fight. It doesn't seem like he's looking to knock people out. It doesn't look like he, wants to be in a brawl. He's has had 5 fights in the UFC. All 5 have gone to decision. His past 9 fights have gone to the decision. So, like I said, he doesn't really throw with too much ill intent. So, if this fight takes place on the feet and Pearson is constantly marching forward and Green is being low output, he's not throwing hard shots, Pearson's going to be marching him down like a zombie and he's going to be throwing hard punches back. The judges could easily see that and give that round to Pearson, and he has a good chance at squeaking out a close decision in this one just by coming forward more, by throwing more, and maybe by throwing with harder ill intent. You know what I mean by that? It's just, Pearson, even though he was getting his ass kicked by Makdessi, he was still, embracing that just bleed spirit and, throwing, winging punches, and, judges like that shit, Sometimes, us hardcore fans knows that doesn't win you around, but some people, the casual people, they see it and they love it. Kyle Bochniak won rounds against Zabit according to the judges' scorecards, but did he really? I don't know. I thought he got outstruck in that round 3, but he came forward marching like a madman, throwing shots, and he won the round on some of the judges' scorecards. So it's very possible that could happen. But if Green chooses to mix up his wrestling, mix up the ground game into his striking, use his striking to set up his takedowns and make this fight, a mixed martial arts fight instead of just a kickboxing bout, I think the Green will win this one, most of the time. That's why he's such a big favorite, is because he's most likely going to mix up the ground game into this one and, probably win a decision. But, I'm throwing a little fun money on Pearson. I think he's got a chance of squeaking out a decision in this one, although the pick is going to be Green. The next fight takes place in the women's strawweight division. We have Jessica Aguilar, who is 20-7, taking on Marina Rodriguez, who is 10-0-1 with one draw. The opening betting line for this one was Marina Rodriguez, the -335 favorite, to Jessica Aguilar +245. Looking over at 5 dimes right now, we see Rodriguez -345, Aguilar +285. So a little bit of action coming in Rodriguez's way. Another short notice fight. Marina Rodriguez was supposed to take on Alex Grasso in this one, but Grasso had pulled out, and good old Jag is coming in to replace her in this one. Aguilar is the much more experienced fighter, but it shows. She's got some years on her. 36 years old, 1-3 in her past 4 fights. She struggled. Only 1-3 in the UFC total, but I think she kind of got thrown to the wolves. She was 18-4 coming into the UFC. She was in World Series of Fighting. Fucking girls up. She was, on a 10-fight win streak, and then the UFC throws her to Claudia Gadelha on her first fight. She didn't fight for 2 years, then comes back against Courtney Casey, loses a close decision in that one, and then finally comes back with a nice win against Jodie Escobil, and then gets absolutely mauled by Weili Zhang in her last fight. Just ground and pound, taken down, ground and pound, and then submitted. So. Very tough straws that Jessica Aguilar drew in her UFC career so far. Definitely a more winnable matchup in this one. Marina Rodriguez made her UFC debut in her last fight. She went to a draw with Randa Marcos somehow. Now, Randa Marcos was able to take her down in that first round, was able to, get top control, get mount, look for some submissions, look for some ground and pound, and apparently won the scorecards 10-8. On I think most of the judges' scorecards. Let's pull up that shit on MMADecisions.com, and we'll figure out what the exact scorecards were in that one. But Rodriguez dug deep in that fight. She was taken down. She lost the first round clearly. She was mounted. She almost got finished, and then she comes back in rounds 2 and 3, and then wins the fight, makes the fight a draw. So it seems like let's see. Yeah, the majority of people agree that round 1 was 10-8 for Marcos, and then the last 2 rounds were 10-9 for Rodriguez. A lot of people also agree that it was 10-9 for Marcos in the first. So where the betting line is set at now, Marina Rodriguez is a -350 favorite. That's fucking ridiculous. This girl's brand new to the UFC. Only had 1 fight, got taken down, and lost the grappling in that fight. And that's definitely what Jessica Aguilar is going to be looking to do in this fight as well. She's got a pretty solid ground game. That fight against Courtney Casey, she had a good amount of success versus Courtney Casey with those takedowns. Now, she would get the takedowns, but then in terms of doing damage with them, not so much. She didn't look like she was going for submissions. No top control, no ground and pound. She would get the submissions and then kind of let her opponent get up, and Courtney Casey in that one. So, I just think that Rodriguez is she's got. I didn't even talk about her really yet. She's got really great Muay Thai. She's got good kicks, good knees, elbows. She's solid in the clinch. All the things a good Muay Thai fighter has. Her boxing defense, not very good. Seems like she's got that tall women's defense. She is a longer, taller girl, so she doesn't really move, slip punches too well. She kind of just tries to move away from them, but ends up getting tagged a little bit. Her grappling overall, it's definitely a huge liability. She got head and arm throwed versus Marcos, a really low level takedown. Then got, like I said, controlled, full mounted. Defended. She defended the submissions well, and like I said, she showed some good cardio, getting back those rounds 2 and 3 and making that fight a draw. But her weakness was definitely exposed, and she's fighting Marcos. Marcos is she's had that type of fight before, where she's had early success and then she lost the fight late. So Jag might complete a couple takedowns in this fight. She might get Rodriguez to the ground for a little bit, but I don't see her having the top control, the submission skills, the ground and pound skills to win the rounds on the floor versus Rodriguez. I see Rodriguez keeping this fight standing and honestly just butchering Aguilar wherever it goes. I don't think she'll finish her. I think Rodriguez will win a decision. It's possible though. Rodriguez made her opponent quit on the Tuesday Night Contender Series. She was beating her so bad, the woman literally turned to the referee and said no more and quit. While on the feet, it wasn't like knocked down. It wasn't like a verbal tap or anything. She just quit. So I see Rodriguez keeping this one on the feet and then winning a decision. Next fight is taking place in the featherweight division. We have Shayman Moraes, who is 11-2, taking on Sadiq Youssef, who is 8-1. The opening betting line for this one was Sadiq Youssef minus 135 to Shayman Moraes minus 105. So looking over at our affiliated sportsbook 5dimes.eu, we see Youssef minus 135 to Moraes plus 115, so much more action coming in Youssef's way. Actually, he opened minus 135 and then immediately was bet all the way to minus 200, slowly crept up to the minus 175, minus 180, and now he's all the way at minus 135 for Sadiq Youssef. So a lot of the early action came in on Sadiq Youssef, and now the late action is coming back on Shayman Moraes. And I agree with the late action in this one. I think Shayman Moraes has, I think where the opening line was set was much more accurate, as almost a pick of minus 135 to minus 105. I really like Shayman Moraes' chances in this fight. I actually think that he will win this fight, and I've been slightly impressed with Youssef so far. His boxing has looked great, but his ground game not so much. He, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it in the UFC. He took on Suman Mokhtarian. He knocked him out in the first round with his boxing. So he looked great in that fight. But if you watch that fight versus Gomez back in LFA, I think it was LFA, and he was there was a smaller guy in Gomez in that fight. The fight was at 145, but Luis Gomez looked like the much smaller guy. That was in December of 2017, not that long ago. And Gomez was able to take Youssef down, and then he was able to do some wicked judo throw and spike Sadiq Youssef's face into the canvas and really hurt Youssef, and then finish him off with some ground and pound right afterwards. The only loss of Sadiq Youssef's career is coming by the way of Luis Gomez. He was 6-0 as an amateur, and then he was undefeated going into that fight with Luis Gomez too. And then Luis Gomez put a stop to that with that unique slam. It wasn't some type of fluke. That's definitely a technique. Luis Gomez has used it before in his fights, and he caught Sadiq with it in that fight. So if this fight takes place on the feet, I expect it to be close. It'll be Youssef's boxing versus Moraes' Muay Thai. Moraes is former pro Muay Thai fighter, fought in Thailand, fight in Lumpini Stadium, which is it's a highly prestigious stadium. No Joe Schmo can fight there. Not even guys with dozens of hundreds of fights can fight at Lumpini. They only take the highest caliber level of fighters, and Shayman Moraes fought there back in 2011 before he transitioned to his MMA career. But you can still see the Muay Thai in Shayman Moraes, man. I can tell you that. He really uses good Muay Thai in the octagon. His elbows, particularly, he slices people with those elbows. You watch his fight with Julio Arce, his most recent fight, an absolutely bloody war from those two gentlemen. I say war because that was just the type of fight it was, but it was really pretty one-sided for Shayman Moraes, honestly. I think it was somehow a split decision. But, Shayman Moraes, I think, won that fight almost 3-0, maybe even, 10-8 in one of the first rounds. Actually, no. The first round was 10-9, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3-0 for Moraes in that one. He, Arce took his back in that fight. He defended the choke. He defended all of the ground attacks from Arce, the takedown attempts from Arce. He was able to stuff those easily. And he actually showed some real power with his right hand. He was able to drop Arce in that fight. He's a little bit willing to trade in the pocket. That's where I think he could get himself into trouble in this one. If he's, throws defense to the wind and is just trying to, swing and bang with Youssef. Youssef's got real power in his hands. He's got solid boxing, and I think he can test that chin of Moraes. But Moraes can also test the chin of Youssef. Luis Gomez hit Sadiq Youssef with a relatively weak right hand. It didn't look like it had much power behind it, and it stunned Youssef bad. So he could be a little bit shaky. Look out for it. And those elbows to the side of your head, they don't feel good, and they can put you out easily. So I just think that Moraes has more tools. I think he's the better grappler in this fight. The stand-up is relatively even. I give the edge to Youssef in boxing, but when Moraes is able to use his kicks, his elbows, his knees, his clinch all together, I think that he becomes the better striker, and that is why I'm favoring him in this matchup. I think that he will actually has a good chance of finishing Youssef. Youssef's he's tough though, so I don't think that it'll be easy. Luis Gomez was able to finish him, but 15 other opponents have tried and have failed. So don't expect to get Youssef out there easy. I think this is a terrific matchup between two terrific prospects. I think Moraes has surpassed the prospect level at this point. I think he's actually a proven guy. He's had a good amount of experience in the UFC, while Youssef is definitely still a prospect, only his second fight in the UFC. But this one's going to be a close matchup, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Shimon Moraes. Now moving on to the next fight. Taking place in the light heavyweight division, we have Paul Craig, who is 10-3, taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu, who is 6-0. Now, looking over at the opening betting line, we have Nzechukwu, who is -210, opener to Craig at +165. Looking over at our affiliated sportsbook, 5dimes.ui, Netch at -185 to Craig at +160. I'm calling my boy Kennedy Netch, Nzechukwu. Nobody knows how to pronounce his name. He won his fight on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, and the woman goes, "Your winner by split decision, Kennedy Nzechukwu." I'm not the only one struggling out here. I wonder if he's Nigerian too, man. The Nigerians are taking over the UFC. Sadiq Youssef, Nigerian. Nzechukwu, Nigerian. I think Israel Adesanya is as well. I definitely know Kamaru Usman is. So, these guys are, slowly, I wouldn't say taking over the UFC, but, they're making their impact. So this is going to be Netch's UFC debut in this one. He's had 2 fights on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, and he also has some nice wins in LFA and the XKO promotion. Interesting enough, his level of competition is not too high. The best opponent he's fought was Anton Berzin on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, and that was a tough win. A split decision. Somehow it was not a split. It was a two rounds to 1 for Netch in that one. He lost the first round. It looked like he got dropped in the first round. It looked like he was in some deep submission attempts in the first round, but he got out of those submission attempts, and now he's fighting another submission guy here in Paul Craig. And I think Paul Craig's submission abilities have been largely overestimated. I don't think he's very skilled on the ground. He pulled out that amazing triangle against Ankalaev, but other than that, he submitted Luis Enrique de Silva too, one of the biggest bums I've ever seen fight. And but Jimmy Crute styled him on the ground. He would take Jimmy Crute down. He would have top position for a few minutes, and then he would get reversed, and then Crute would put him in a submission, or Crute would hit him with the ground and pound. So even though he was the one initiating the grappling in that one, he got out grappled by Jimmy Crute, a young, strong guy without much technique. He's 22 years old, and he really just uses strength to just power out of position sometimes. So. Craig also, his striking is really bad. He looks scared on the feet. He's has lost to Tyson Pedro and Khalil Roundtree by TKO. Both of those guys walked Craig down and got him out of there quick. Craig just, like I said, looks like he doesn't look like he likes to strike. It looks like he much rather just be grappling, and he looks like he's scared to get hit. He's constantly moving back. He's really chinny. He doesn't take much of a shot to knock him out. I have a hard time believing that Craig is going to be able to win this fight, because his best path to victory is the grappling. Now, Anton Berzin is a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's been a black belt for 5-6 years. I actually know Anton, I wouldn't say well, but I know him. I've trained with him a bunch of times in Philadelphia. And, he's high level. He competes in jiu-jitsu on a regular basis against other black belts. And, I've seen him, walk through other black belts in no-gi grappling while, he had a deep submission attempt on Netch in that fight, and he was not able to finish him. So I don't think that Craig will be able to finish him either. Because his grappling, he doesn't have offensive jiu-jitsu. I think he's got defensive jiu-jitsu. When he was sitting on his back getting his face smashed by Ankalaev, he was able to throw up the triangle and get a finish. He's not the type of guy to take you down, get top position, and then submit you from there. He likes submitting you from the bottom, which is just not a good position and not a good plan, honestly, because Netch is not going to take this fight to the floor. He's going to look to keep this fight entirely on the feet, where he's much more comfortable, where he's got that good boxing. He's got solid kicks as well. Netch his striking looks very good. He was able to, like I said, get taken down by Berzin in the rounds 1 in that fight. Then he was able to avoid the ground in rounds 2 and 3 and win the fight on the feet. Even though he got taken down and dropped and almost submitted in round 1, his cardio looked pretty solid. He was able to win round 2 and 3 relatively easily, stuff all the takedown attempts of Berzin, and cruise to a decision in that fight. And wasn't signed to the UFC in that one. They said he's not quite ready yet, which he 100% was not. He went back to the regional scenes, got 2 knockouts, went back on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, and got 1 more knockout. He finished, a pretty low-level opponent in that fight, though. So, even though Dennis Bryant, he had a 5-1 record, but I would like to see the guys that he beat. Let's check it right now just to entertain us. Wins over 3-3, 1-1, 15-4, 5-16, and 4-11. Yeah, so his competition has sucked Dennis Bryant, and that's why Netch was able to walk through him so easily. So, in this fight, Crut's going to be looking to get it to the ground, but his wrestling is not very good. His top control is not very good. His offensive jiu-jitsu is not very good. I don't see him having the ground game to be able to finish this one. I see Netch keeping it on the feet. I see him, tagging Craig up in this one. Netch doesn't throw with, a lot of power. I think he's more of a consistent volume type of guy than a power type of guy. But, like I said, it does not take much to test that chin of Craig. He's gotten hit before. He's definitely chinny. I think that Netch has a good chance of testing that chin again and getting Craig out of there. If he doesn't, I think he will win a decision pretty clearly, avoiding the takedown attempts. I hope he's working on his takedown attempts, because even though Craig's his takedowns are pretty bad, he still might be able to hit that takedown on Netch, and Netch is going to have to be able to get back to his feet. So, Craig's best path to victory, even though you'd think it'd be the submission, it's not. It's taking Netch down, winning rounds on top, and winning this fight on the scorecards, maybe 2-1. I don't think he's going to submit Netch, and he's definitely not going to knock him out. So I think the Netch has more paths to victory via decision or knockout, and then I think that he will get this one done. And, there's been steady action coming in on Paul Craig the past couple of days. He hovered around plus 200 for the past couple weeks, and now he's in 185, 175, down to 160 now. It's at the point now where Netch is almost becoming playable, but I wouldn't play him. His takedown defense, his jiu-jitsu is a little bit too unknown. It's his UFC debut. I just wouldn't trust him in this spot. If you see him defend the takedowns early or pop back up to his feet after a takedown and try to hit that live bet, but pre-fight it's going to be a pass on both sides for me in this one. And that's going to take us along to the next fight, which is in the women's strawweight division. We have Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who is 12-3, taking on Michelle Waterson, who is 16-6. The opening betting line for this one was Kowalkiewicz as the -135 favorite to Waterson at -105. Right now, looking over at 5 dimes, we see Kowalkiewicz -145 to Waterson at +125. Great matchup between these two ladies. Two of my favorite fighters in WMMA. They both have great fights every time. They both have a wide variety of technique, both on the ground and on the feet, and it's just a pleasure to watch them. I'm probably the bigger fan of Kovacevic, just because I think her Muay Thai is she utilizes Muay Thai effectively in MMA. With her clinch game, her knees, her elbows. She actually beat the champ currently, the current champ of the strawweight division, Rose Namajunas. Carolina has a win over her, while Rose Namajunas blasted Michelle Waterson into another dimension with that head kick. So. Not doing MMA math by any means, but this is a great matchup, and Michelle Waterson, she always comes prepared. She tracks her progress throughout social media very clearly. You see her start weight at 135, then she goes down, and weight, and she makes her weight great. She, takes her strength and conditioning seriously. She prepares for her opponents. She's got good coaches behind her. They study film, and they train for those weaknesses of her opponents. And you can tell that in the cage. Some people, they go in there training for the same opponent every time. That's terrible. MMA is all about matchups. It's you can tell more about watching tape than anything. So Michelle Waterson. Her coaches definitely value watching tape, and they prepare for fights very well. So I assure you that this will be a close fight, even though I give the slight edge to Carolina. I think that Carolina will win this one on the scorecards, but it's not going to be an easy fight at all. The reason why I lean Carolina is her clinch, like I mentioned earlier. Waterson has, had some trouble with the clinch. Felice Herrig was able to clinch her up and, control or dictate the fight in the clinch. Herrig wants to clinch. She wants to, take you down. And she was able to do that for periods of the fight. Now, Herrig did lose that fight, and Waterson was able to win, I think, 2 rounds in that fight and come away with the scorecards. But Herrig definitely still had a good bit of success. And I think that if Carolina was in that position that Herrig was in, that Carolina would have been doing a lot more damage. She had those double underhooks in the clinch, and if it was Carolina, she would have been spamming knees to Waterson's gut, and throwing those elbows over the top. And she's very good in the clinch. Carolina, her technique is just flawless. Some of the best in the UFC, men or women, in the clinch. Her output is good. Her cardio is good. She's throwing from belt to belt. Carolina is, but her boxing is definitely her weakness. Her hands are not very good, not only offensive and defensively. She's, she just got caught in that last fight versus Andrade, got dropped with that huge bomb. And, against all of her opponents, she's so worried about output. She's so worried about, spamming those shots constantly. She doesn't pay too much attention to defense, and she's definitely open to getting countered with the hands. But, Waterson, not much of a boxer. I don't think Carolina has to be too worried about, getting tagged up with boxing in this one. It's going to be interesting where Michelle Waterson wants to take this fight. I believe she's going to want to keep it at kicking distance. Waterson's kicks are immaculate. She'll be moving backwards and she'll snap a head kick up. She counters with head kicks. She's moving backwards and she throws side kicks. She's got just beautiful, beautiful kicks. They don't call her the karate hottie for nothing. She moves around a lot. She's always moving in and out, and no matter where she's at, she can hit you with those kicks. So that's something you got to be worried about. And she almost all her opponents she lands head kicks on, which is just so impressive, honestly. Now, when Carolina is, both of these women do this. Whenever they clinch up with one another, they both throw big elbows on the break. So, they're clinch, and they separate, and they both spam an elbow. Michelle Waterson hit Felice Herrig with some real nice elbows in their fight, especially off of her back as well. Felice was able to get Waterson on her back, but Waterson was winning the exchanges by throwing those elbows off her back. So, another fight to look at in this one is the Michelle Waterson's fight with Tecia Torres. Torres had a good amount of success in the clinch. She she wanted the fight in the clinch and she got it there. And if now Torres was able to win that fight, unlike Herrig was in the clinch. Torres was able to win the clinch. She was able to take Waterson down. She was able to hold Waterson down, and No, that was the other way around. Excuse me, I'm looking at my notes wrong. Waterson took Torres down and held Torres down and won the second round. Torres won the first round and the third round. Waterson snuck in the second, So Waterson's fights are always close. She always has a way of making it close with her takedowns. Look for those trip takedowns. Those are coming to play big in this fight. When fighters are clinching up, those trip takedowns are often open, and Michelle Waterson really has good trip takedowns. So she knows that Carolina is going to be initiating the clinches in this one, and she's probably been drilling those trip takedowns from the clinch nonstop these past 6 weeks. She's probably also been, training her kicks, her movement to try to keep Carolina off of her. And she might even be looking to take this fight to the ground, considering that Carolina's, I believe that Waterson is the better grappler than Carolina in this matchup. Waterson, I would say, I would say they, it's just almost a dead pick'em in this one. I slightly lean Carolina's way because I just seen a little bit of too much weakness in Waterson from the clinch in this one. I think Waterson has a tiny chance to submit Carolina, just like Carolina has a tiny chance to knock out Waterson. But, Waterson slows down in the second and third rounds. Carolina has crazy output. She's got, she punishes the body a lot. It's certainly possible that Carolina could get a late finish, but I don't see it happening. I see it going to the scorecards. And now, if it's more grappling heavy, I see Waterson edging out the scorecards. If it's more striking and clinch heavy, I see Carolina winning the scorecards in this one. And I do think it will be more striking, more clinch oriented. And I do see Carolina Kovalkiewicz winning a decision 2-1. But it's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be contested all over the octagon, on the feet, in the clinch, and in the grappling exchanges. And it's going to be a great fight. Women's matchups don't really get much better than this one, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. Moving on to the next fight in the featherweight division, we have Josh Emmett, who is 13-2, taking on Michael Johnson, who is 19-13. The opening betting line for this one was Michael Johnson was plus 100 to Josh Emmett at minus 140. Looking over at 5dimes.eu right now, we see Emmett minus 110, Johnson minus 110. A perfect pick 'em in this one, and it's surprising, honestly. I think the books are over evaluating Josh Emmett in this one. I think he got too much respect versus Jeremy Stephens. He closed as a plus 100 underdog to Jeremy Stephens. Now, he did have moments of success in that fight. He did drop Jeremy Stephens in that fight, but ultimately Jeremy Stephens was able to make the adjustment and then finish Josh Emmett brutally in that next round. Absolutely brutal finish. It did an incredible amount of damage to Josh Emmett. My man broke his orbital, his nose, his cheek, his lip, his jaw, his chin, his ear. He broke everything in his face, man. He's had he's taken over a year off, luckily, to repair those injuries, but it's going to be tough to recover from that. It's not only physically, you're a fighter, you're getting punched in the nose constantly, so it's hard to let those injuries fully heal. But mentally, man, you're also a fighter who's getting punched in the face, and you have to realize, oh shit, like, there's real damage being done to me from taking these punches, and no one knows that better than Josh Emmett right now. He just had to get 5 surgeries to repair 80 broken bones in his face after Jeremy Stephens, butchered his face with elbows and punches. So, it's gonna be interesting to see how Josh Emmett bounces back from that devastating loss, physically and mentally. He was really aggressive. He threw with a lot of fast twitch muscle. He would wait, and then just throw bombs. You just come in the pocket and throw bombs. And he's not really an output kind of guy. He's looking to throw heavy shots. He's looking to knock you out, honestly. And that's what he did versus Ricardo Lamas. Definitely his best win by far. He came in that fight short notice against Ricardo Lamas, and he put Lamas out cold with his left hand too. He dropped Jeremy Stephens with his right hand. He dropped Ricardo Lamas with his left hand. So Emmett's got power in both of his hands, and both of these gentlemen, former lightweights, dropping down to featherweight. I don't understand how either of them make featherweight, honestly. Johnson definitely has a smaller frame, but Emmett has so much muscle. He's so thick for the weight class. It's incredible how this man makes weight. His back is so wide. He's got so much muscle in his upper body. I just have no idea how my man makes 145. And I think it's the weight cut's not good for him. It seems like he's got a great wrestling background. It doesn't seem like he likes to use it because wrestling is tiring. It exhausts your muscles quick, and I don't think Emmett has the body type to be implement his wrestling in the cage. I think the reason why he doesn't throw too much output, he's not looking to throw with volume. He's looking to throw single shots with power, is because that suits his body type better. So look for Josh Emmett in this fight to be, Johnson's going to be the more active striker. He's going to be throwing more punches. He's going to be landing more. But Josh Emmett's going to be marching forward, looking to land that one punch that can test that chin of Michael Johnson. Now, Michael Johnson's got a really good chin. I mean, I can. Let's see. I mean, he got submitted by Khabib. But let's try to think if Michael Johnson, he got submitted by Darren Elkins. Let's try to think if Michael Johnson's ever been knocked out. Pulling up his record right now. Let's see. Oh yeah, Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje knocked him out. That's one. Let's see here. Submission, decision. Yeah, so one knockout in his career. That came, by the way, at Justin Gaethje, and that came by he was winning that fight too. He had early success, and then eventually just the accumulated damage and pressure of Gaethje eventually broke him, finishing him in that fight. But it's not like he never got knocked down in that fight. He was wobbled, and he did the Jimmy leg a couple of times and didn't really have his legs against underneath him, but he didn't get dropped. He never got, he didn't get put out cold or anything like that. It was a TKO stoppage. So Michael Johnson's chin is iron, but if Josh Emmett connects with one of those bombs on Johnson's chin, I think Johnson might go night-night in this one. But I think Johnson is the much more technical striker. I think he's got better defense. He's got a good jab. He's got a wicked left hand. He's throws a lot of kicks as well. I think that Johnson will be the better striker in there. I think that he will be able to avoid that big power shot of Josh Emmett, and I think that he will win this one, outstriking Emmett on the scorecards. Now, if Emmett finally decides to use that wrestling pedigree, it'll get interesting. He's got that wrestling. Johnson's ground game is definitely his weakness. He's been taken down and submitted before. He fought Darren Elkins. He 10-8'd Darren Elkins in the first round, and then Darren Elkins went out there, took him down, and choked him out 90 seconds into the second round. And Darren Elkins trains at Team Alpha Male, where Josh Emmett trains, where Andre Feely trains, who Michael Johnson just fought. So Team Alpha Male is preparing for their third fight with Michael Johnson in the past year. So you got to think that the event, they're going to be sharing secrets with one another. They're going to be saying, oh, this is what he does, and maybe they're going to figure out the formula to Michael Johnson. They couldn't figure it out with Andre Feely. Andre Feely lost that fight, although a very, very close fight. Darren Elkins was able to, even though he got his face boxed in for the first half of the fight, he was able to take him down. So I think the Team Alpha Male guys are going to be urging Josh Emmett to wrestle in this one. I think Emmett's going to be thinking about, his face getting smashed. He's not going to want to eat too many punches, and I think he's going to be looking to wrestle in this one. So if this fight takes place on the feet, I think that Michael Johnson will avoid that power shot of Johnson, and he will outstrike Johnson, or Johnson will avoid the power shot of Emmett and will outstrike Josh Emmett to a decision. If Emmett decides to mix up the wrestling, it'll get interesting. It really will. I don't know if Emmett has much submission skills, but if he can put Johnson on his back, if he can win rounds, if he can not expand too much energy and be able to go the full 3 rounds, then Emmett has a good chance of winning this one, be it with his wrestling. But I don't think he will. Like I said, I don't think Emmett has the style, the body type for wrestle. I don't think he'll have the cardio to wrestle. I think he loves, throwing hands. He fell in love with the knockout a while back, and I don't think he's abandoned it since. And I think he'll be looking to strike in this one, and I think Johnson will outstrike him for the entirety of the fight. And Johnson will win on the scorecards in this one. So moving on to the next fight in the middleweight division, the co-main event of the evening, we have Dave Branch, who is 22-5, taking on Jack Hermanson, who is 18-4. The opening betting line for this one was Jack Hermanson as the -120 favorite to Dave Branch as the -120 favorite, a -120 pick'em opening opening odds in this one. Right now, over at our affiliated sportsbook 5Dimes, we are seeing Hermansson -125, Branch at +105. So two-way action is definitely coming in on this fight. Hermansson was a bigger favorite earlier in the week, and now he's creeping up back to even money. So very close matchup in this fight. It really, I lean Hermansson. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. I've been really impressed with Hermansson lately. I have been really underwhelmed with Dave Branch lately. Dave Branch has had, I think, a pretty horrible UFC career, if I'm being quite frank. He's 1-3 in the UFC. He's 2-2 in the UFC. I misspoke. And 2-2. That win over Krzysztof Jotko, just an absolutely boring fight. He looked terrible in that one. He was clinching against the cage, and he looked very, very mediocre. He got knocked out by Rockhold, and he got knocked out by Cannonier in his last fight, with a knockout win over Thiago Santos, which looks pretty good in between those. So Branch, he's got nice boxing. He's got good takedowns. His top control is not very good, though. He'll be able to get those takedowns, but he doesn't do much with the takedowns. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. A lot of his early wins came by the way of submission, but he hasn't really gone back to that submission pedigree. Dave Branch, he doesn't do well against leg kicks. I think he has bad boxing defense. I think he's got a bad chin. I think he gets tagged really easily. When he takes down opponents, they get up. Jared Cannonier got up. Krzysztof Jotko got up. He didn't do much damage versus either of those guys. And Branch, even though having a good wrestling background, he got taken down by Luke Rockhold. He got taken down by Krzysztof Jotko. So fighting a guy like Jack Hermansson, who's got the best ground and pound in MMA, self-proclaimed, and honestly, I gotta agree with the guy after his past two fights, winning both of them. Not both of them by way of ground and pound. Well, he kind of did. His last fight was a submission arm and guillotine over Gerald Michart, but the submission was opened up by the ground and pound. The dude's got vicious ground and pound. And you want to talk about crazy fights. Jack Hermansson versus Thales Lathis is one of the most inspiring fights I've ever seen in my life. Hermansson loses the first round. He gets taken down in the second, and you see him start wincing in pain. Right away, he's wincing in pain. We don't know what it is. We're watching the replay. We think it's his knee. We don't know it, but and then he has black belt, a guy who's been grappling for 25, 30 years in Thales Lathis on top of him. Full mount, side control, half guard, just putting that pressure right in his chest. And the dude just broke his rib. So imagine breaking your rib and then having a 200-pound guy who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu on top of you for an entire round, trying to choke you out. Now, Hermansson in that round was put in deep arm triangle chokes by Thales Lathis. So deep to the point where Thales Lathis' cornerman started celebrating to the crowd. The fight was in Brazil. Brazilian fighter locked up the submission, started cheering, and then all of a sudden he turned around and it's like, oh, he's defending. Hermansson defended the choke. He got out of the choke. And, he was beat down at the end of the second round. He was wincing in pain. He was making audible gasps in pain, stumbling back to his corner. The referee was checking on him in between rounds. Are you sure you can go? You sure? Yeah, he can go. He comes out round 3. He throws a flying knee. It misses. He goes for his own submission attempt versus Thales Lathis. He doesn't get it. Humans gets put in another submission attempt, or Humans gets tapped out again by Thales Lathis. He gets put in a deep anaconda submission attempt from black belt Thales Lathis and gets out of the choke one last time. And that was the last of Thales Lathis. Thales Lathis had nothing left in the tank. He rolled over. He got on bottom. Jack Hermansson gets on top, and he pounds him out for the ground and pound victory. And, just the sheer emotion that Jack Hermansson showed after that fight. He's, that's the noise he was making. That's all he could say. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't happy. He was just moaning in pain from his broken rib. And he just couldn't believe the fact that he came back from that fight. He was, crying after the fight. Said it was the worst pain he's ever experienced. And, I don't doubt it. Just the fact that he came back from that fight the fact that he got out of those deep submission chokes from a jiu-jitsu black belt, the fact that he survived that top pressure from Talis Latis and then came back 2 rounds to none in the third round and finished his opponent in the third. It was just, I watched it today again, and I've seen the fight multiple times before. It's just one of the most incredible comebacks I've ever seen. I think the commentators actually kind of give it a disservice. Oh, Hermansson could finish it right here, and that is it. Hermansson with the comeback victory. No, dude. He just came back from the brink of death, from the brink of being choked out with his ribs broken, and he comes back and he ground and pounds Talis Latis for the finish. So I've been going on about that fight for a while. Check that fight out. It's just so great from Hermansson. Just an inspiring performance. And, he's had another fight since then. Hermansson went down. He took down Meerschaert. He pounded Meerschaert out, and he submitted Meerschaert, a very advanced grappler in his own right. And, that's why I favor Hermansson in this one. He just beat a guy whose specialty is the ground game. Now, I would say Branch is a very well-rounded martial artist. I'd say that, it's hard to say. I'd say his ground game is better. He's got the wrestling background. He's got the jiu-jitsu black belt. His striking isn't too good. I would say that Branch's specialty is the ground. But Hermansson just beat a guy whose specialty is the ground as well in Meerschaert. Now, Branch is a lot better than Meerschaert, so I give Branch a little bit better of a chance in this one. I think that Hermansson will, his striking is so unorthodox. He's got real fast in and out movement. He thwacks leg kicks around. He, his boxing is not very good, but Branch's isn't either. Branch is good offensive boxing, but his defensive boxing is pretty bad. So, I think this one will end up on the floor. I think that Hermansson will get that top position, and he will rain down that ground and pound again. Branch has gotten stuck on bottom and gotten TKO'd before. It happened versus Rockhold. He got TKO'd by Cannonier in his last fight. He's really looked very mediocre in the UFC so far, and Hermansson has just looked nothing but impressive. So I got to side with Hermansson in this one. I think that he gets it done probably by finish as well. And now we have arrived at the main event of the evening. In the lightweight division, we have Edson Barboza, who is 20-6, taking on Justin Gaethje, who is 19-2. The opening betting line for this one was Edson Barboza as the -135 favorite to Justin Gaethje as the -105 underdog. Right now, we are seeing Edson Barboza -130, Justin Gaethje at +110. So, two-way action coming in on this fight. Since the line has been out, it's been bouncing all over the place. Gaethje shot up to +160 at one point. Went back down to +120, and now it went back up to +145, and now he's back down to all the way to +110, the lowest he's been since the line opened. So, obviously, a very close fight in this one. The odds indicate it. Any fight fan knows that this one's going to be a hard-fought war. I don't expect either one of these guys to make it look easy. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth battle in this one. And, I just can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it in person. And I just hope I get to witness, an all-out war between these two gentlemen. So, let's start talking about what these guys do good. Justin Gaethje, one of the best pressure fighters in the sport. Just from the moment the bell starts, he's marching you forward. He likes getting punched, man. And the craziest part about this guy, it seems like he likes getting hit at some point. It looks like he can't get into a fight unless he gets tagged beforehand. So in almost all of his fights, he gets rocked, and he eats punches in all of his fights, but in every one of them, he marches forward and he throws back harder than his opponents have thrown at him. And only two guys have been able to stop him. And that's been Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje. Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, have been able to stop him. But, Gaethje had success against both of those guys. He was winning the fight against Poirier before he got stopped in that one. I think he was losing the fight against Eddie before he got finished in that one. But it's just he's got weaknesses. That type of fighting style is a weakness in itself. He puts on a good show for the fans. He has incredible fights. He goes to war in all of his fights, but he's taking an immense amount of damage. he's eaten so many punches. It's just it can't be good for you. That damage is gonna accumulate over time, and his chin is just not gonna be there anymore after a while. But I don't think we're there yet. I think he can still take a shot pretty well. But where he can't take shots well is to the body. Eddie Alvarez attacked his body viciously and eventually possibly led to the finish of Justin Gaethje in that fight. Gaethje was training for 5-round fights and he had a great gas tank, but Eddie Alvarez finished him in a 3-round fight. So that definitely had something to do with Eddie Alvarez, digging into the body versus Justin Gaethje in that fight back at UFC 218, I think it was. So I could be wrong. I could have just totally made up that day, even though I'm pretty sure it was 218. So Barboza is one of the probably the best kicker in the sport. Just an incredible Muay Thai practitioner. Some of the fastest kicks in the UFC. The best wheel kicks in the UFC. Highlight reel knockouts for days. He hits your legs hard. He's got very solid takedown defense as well. He's got good knees, flying knees, spinning attacks. Just one of the best strikers that the sport has ever seen. But the thing he struggles with is pressure. We've seen guys beat him with pressure before. Most notoriously was Michael Johnson. That fight was a straight striking battle where Michael Johnson outboxed Edson Barboza. He had he had Barboza on the back foot the entire fight, and he outboxed him to a unanimous decision in that one. When Edson Barboza doesn't have space, when he isn't able to kick at that range that he's comfortable at, when he isn't able to dictate the pace of the fight, he struggles big time. That happened against Varner. When he got finished back in the day, back at UFC 146. Don Cerrone was bringing the pressure to him, dropped him with a jab, choked him out. And then Tony Ferguson, relentless pressure, eventually broke Barboza in that fight. And then two wrestlers, Nurmagomedov and Kevin Lee, broke Barboza in that fight, which is vicious ground and pound wrestling, top control. But even though Justin Gaethje has that great wrestling background, he's wrestled in college, he's got great wrestling, he doesn't use it. It's not worth hypothesizing on if Justin Gaethje is going to use his wrestling. It comes into question in every fight, and he never uses it. He's just trying to knock people out. That's what he does. He cuts off the cage well. You saw that in the James Vick fight. James Vick is a huge, tall guy. He had a lot of reach, a lot of height on Gaethje, but Gaethje studied him. He studied his movements. He knew that Vick used the tall man's defense, and then he eventually knocked him out by cutting off that cage with that left hook. And that's what I think is going to come into factor in this fight. It's the cutting off the cage. It's the pressure of Gaethje. I see Gaethje walking forward, not letting Barboza have that range that Barboza prefers. He prefers to have the fight, more of a methodical pace where he can kick you at range. But when he's moving off of his back foot, he can't throw the kicks as much. And when he does throw kicks, he gets tagged up with the boxing. And that's where Gaethje's going to look to catch him. He's going to look to test that chin of Barboza with his hands. Barboza's going to be looking to dig to the body with those kicks. He just finished Dan Hooker with body kicks. Vicious fight in that one where he just went to the body with the kicks repetitively against Dan Hooker and eventually just led to the finish. And he's going to be looking to throw a couple punches, get Justin Gaethje's high guard up, and then rip the body just like Eddie Alvarez did back a couple years ago. So it's a real close fight. Barboza definitely has a path to victory. I would say it's attacking that body. It's sitting down on some shots and not being content to move backwards, not letting Justin Gaethje walk you down. Landing the leg kicks on both of these guys have great leg kicks. Justin Gaethje's got good leg kicks. Barboza's got great leg kicks. Barboza's going to be looking to try to slow down that movement and that pressure by thwacking that leg of Justin Gaethje with the leg kick. And, that's how he's going to... Barboza, that's his path to victory, is attack the legs, slow down Gaethje, then attack the body, and then look to finish him either to the body or, open up a head kick, some flashy KO. Gaethje's going to also look to kick the legs of Barboza, limit Barboza's movement, and then look to cut off the cage, head Barboza off, not follow him, not let Barboza get the kicks going, and then look to land the boxing on Barboza and probably knock Barboza out. This fight is definitely, I don't see it going to the scorecards. I definitely see one gentleman finishing one another, and it's just going to be an all-out war. I do side with Justin Gaethje. I got him as a plus 145 underdog. Where the odds are at now, I don't know. It's tough. Plus 110 is not. It's close to no value on Gaethje. I think Gaethje. If I had to cap the fight, I would say Barboza minus 130, Gaethje plus 110. So yeah, pretty much where the line is at exactly right now. Yeah, exactly where it's at now. So I guess there's no value on Gaethje where he is now. But I expect more money to come in on Barboza as we get closer to fight day. He was hovering around minus 160, minus 170 for the past couple weeks. I expect more money to come in on him later. But I'm just hoping for a good fight. I'm not sold on Gaethje 100%. I don't think it's a clear path to victory by him by any means. So I'm just hoping for a good fight, an all-out war, and I can't fucking wait for this card. I will be in attendance, section 106. If any of you who are listening are also going to be at the fights, hit me up on Twitter at UFO UFC, and we can link up or something like that. And with that being said, that's going to conclude the UFC Philadelphia preview to the podcast, and then we're just going to quickly recap the UFC Nashville card that went down this past weekend, and some general MMA news stories from throughout the week. Alright, so I'm going to breeze through this Nashville recap because I really honestly didn't even watch the card that closely. It's definitely been the least watched card for the past probably year and a half for me. I was just busy Saturday night watching my friend fight, and wasn't able to sit down and watch the fights live as much. I watched most of them back over, but I also skipped a few too. Espinosa, Shelton, Espinosa won on the scorecards. Nothing to say about that one. Didn't really watch it. Gutierrez outstruck McDonald to a decision. McDonald looks like he didn't deserve to be in the UFC. Gutierrez looked a lot better. Marcos took down Hill, dominated Hill with that pressure, and eventually submitted Angela Hill with an armbar. Didn't see that one coming at all. Probably ran Marcos' best performance in the octagon. Jennifer Maia defeated Alexis Davis by decision. Pretty decent fight, honestly. I remember Maia winning the first, Alexis the second, and then Maia coming back for the third. See, Marlon Vera TKO'd Frankie Saenz with some punches to the back of the head. Bryce Mitchell defeated Bobby Moffitt by decision. Bobby Moffitt looked pretty shit in this fight. Honestly, I was expecting a lot better from him. It was a back and forth fight, though. I think Mitchell won one, Moffitt won two, Mitchell won the third. Macy Barber defeated JJ Aldrich. Aldrich actually hurt Macy Barber really badly in the first round of this fight, but Barber was able to survive the storm and then finish Aldrich in the next round with punches of her own. Nice performance from her there. Luis Pena, Steven Pearson, pretty boring fight. Pearson was just going for the takedowns. It was kind of a grinding against the cage fight, and Pena was able to stuff the shots and land the harder punches on the feet. Formiga outclassed Stevenson Figueiredo. Just used pure technique and skill to outclass the bigger, more muscle, more powerful, stronger guy in Figueiredo. Makdessi outstruck Pinedo in a very boring, low output decision. Curtis Blades took down Justin Willis and wrestle-fucked him to a decision. And then in the main event, one of the most shocking fights I've ever seen. Not the entirety of the fight, shocking outcomes. Coming into the fight as over a 3-1 underdog, and after losing the first 9 minutes of the fight, being a plus 500 underdog live, Anthony Pettis knocks out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with a Superman punch that puts Thompson out cold. Just an absolutely unbelievable knockout. A screaming at the screen type knockout. He was down. He was losing this fight. He lost 2 rounds already. And then out of nowhere, Anthony Pettis throws a Superman punch that right on the chin. Thompson puts him out cold. Thompson goes down hard. His head bounces off the canvas. And then Pettis lands 2 absolute gravedigger punches on the ground. I wouldn't say they were unnecessary because the referee didn't come in and stop them. But, Thompson was already gone by the time before he even hit the ground, and then his head bounced off the canvas, and then Pettis put him in the coffin with 2 more punches. Seems like Thompson recovered well, though. He was awake and sentient and messing around after the fight, in good spirits after the knockout loss. But Pettis moving up to welterweight, facing a guy who has never been knocked out. Till dropped him, Woodley dropped him. They weren't able to finish him. He fought Robert Whittaker, wasn't able to finish him. Johnny Hendricks, he fought some of the biggest punchers at the welterweight, and nobody was able to finish him. And then Pettis, a lifetime lightweight, comes up to welterweight and knocks him out with 1 punch. Just a beautifully placed, timed punch. And, just so happy for Anthony Pettis to pull off that victory. Just an absolutely massive come-from-behind upset. And, that shit just doesn't happen in many sports. If that was a baseball game, Anthony Pettis would have been down 7 runs, okay? You can't hit an 8-run home run, okay? But this is fighting. You can land 1 punch that changes the entire outcome of the fight. It's not like, basketball when you're down 10 baskets and you have to come back and you need a bunch of time to do it. You can change the outcome of the contest in 1 second with 1 strike, unlike any other sport. Even it happens in boxing, but it happens even less often. I would say the amount of times that it happened in boxing last week. Actually, this guy was cruising to a decision in the last 30 seconds of the last round, he gets knocked out. But boxing is a much more calculated game. There's less weapons. You're throwing punches. You only have to be worried about punches. They can come from different angles, but you only have to be worried about punches. In MMA, you have to be worried about punches, elbows, kicks, knees, takedowns, submissions, everything. And all those variables, end up with more, outcomes. And that outcome of the Superman come from behind knockout from Anthony Pettis was at the bottom of that list. But it still happened, And that's why MMA is, the greatest sport on earth. Nothing else even comes close to it. And, it's, that knockout really saved the card. It had 8 decisions. It was a boring card. And, the main card was not too exciting. 4 decisions in a row 4 dominant decisions in a row. Not very competitive fights on the main card. And then Pettis comes out there and starches Wonder Boy after getting butchered for the first 10 minutes of the fight. So, just an incredible come-from-behind victory. I was so happy for Pettis. And with that being said, we're just going to quickly get into a couple stories from the week. We're just going to talk about the fights that were... Conor McGregor allegedly retired. That's not happening. He said that he's retired. He said that before. It's not. It's just not going to come to fruition. He'll fight again soon. But some speculation, some conspiracy, like we love on this podcast. McGregor says, "I'm retiring from mixed martial arts." Later in that day, the New York Times publishes an article saying Conor McGregor is being investigated for a rape that happened in December back in Ireland. MMA fans knew about this months ago. Back in December, there was a report coming out of Ireland. They didn't say notorious. That would have been too obvious. They said a famous worldwide Irish athlete celebrity is being investigated for, a sexual assault crime. And, everybody knew that was Conor. It was in like a Dublin bar, everyone knew it was Conor. And, but there was some laws in Ireland where you can't, divulge the person's name or something like that before they're, convicted of the crime. So his name was not released, but then 4 months later, then his name was released. And right before that, 12 hours before this story broke in the New York Times, Conor McGregor tweets out that he's retiring from mixed martial arts. The tweet that said that Conor McGregor is being investigated for the sexual assault crimes, it got about 2,000 likes, 2,000 retweets. The tweet that said that he was retiring got 80,000 retweets, 300,000 likes. So that the numbers are the proof. One is a groundbreaking story about a serious crime that Conor could have potentially committed. It got 4,000 likes and retweets. His about a totally hypothetical retirement that has no chance of happening got over 400,000 likes and retweets. So his strategy was to announce something more, to shout louder. You're saying, oh, there's an alleged rape assault against me. Well, I'm gonna shout something louder. I'm retiring, and then people hear that retirement. That mission accomplished. He's got a publicist. He's got people working behind him. They knew that story was gonna break in the New York Times, and they decided to tell him to do something to distract people from that. So that's what happened. I've not ridden Conor from start to finish, from through thick and thin for the past couple of years. But man, if this rape allegation comes out to be true, then that would probably be the last straw for Conor. That would probably be the nail in the coffin. But let's hope for the best. Let's hope for that nothing. I don't know. It's hard to say. Let's hope for the best. What are you gonna hope that if the girl actually did get raped, that she shouldn't get justice? No, I'm not gonna hope for that at all. I'm hoping that it's a false allegation and that Conor never did anything wrong in the first place. But do I believe that? I don't know. I really don't. Conor is a very aggressive, a very drug behavior driven type of guy. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that he could have done something like this. Let's hope that he, grabbed some girl's ass or, something like that, or did something, non-violent to somebody. But, it would break my heart if it came to fruition that he actually, did rape someone, and, that would be the last straw. You know what I mean? So, a bunch of fights announced. The rematch, Tyron Woodley versus Robbie Lawler. Great fight in that one. It's kind of strange timing, but fuck it, man. Just go ahead and do it. The John Bones Jones defending the title against Thiago Marreta Santos, my favorite fighter. Is Thiago Santos right now. The dude just brings it every single fight. He's never had a boring fight. I like Thiago's chances in this one. I think he's gonna bring the brawl to Jones. He's gonna put Jones uncomfortable. Jones doesn't like trading in the pocket. His boxing defense is not that good. Thiago is gonna look to blitz him. He's gonna look to test that chin, and I like Thiago's chances in this one. I think that I probably will be betting Thiago in this spot. He opened at plus 500 already. That's massive value to me already. I think he's the favorite. Another fight announced, Marlon Moraes versus Henry Cejudo for the vacant bantamweight title. We speculated that was going to be the case, and that ended up coming to fruition. Great fight in that one. And then another fight between Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes for the bantamweight title is going down. UFC 239, another great matchup between two of the best women in the world. So with those couple of fights announced, that's going to be it for the program. We broke down the UFC Philadelphia card going down this Saturday night. We previewed the we recapped the UFC Nashville card that went down this past weekend, and then we talked about some general MMA stories from throughout the week. So that's going to do it for episode 55. It's been 9 weeks in a row of Martian MMA. We are off next week for the first time in a while. So it's going to be nice to get the break, and we'll be back at you with UFC 236 in a couple of weeks. And we'll see you then. Enjoy the fights in Philly on Saturday night.